I remember at one point in my career, I was even supposed to act as manager of the national radio. Then, for me to be given that position to act became a problem. And they started looking for other people who would do it. And most of the people they went to told them, no, it's Madam Amie Joof who should be the acting manager. She mentored us, we've worked with her, and we know that she's capable to do the job. I didn't know that all those maneuvers were going on until one day they had to hand over to me as acting manager of the national radio. But it's later on that I got the full story, and the argument was that, some of these women, they will not say strong women, they will say, some of these women, when you put them there, they will change everything. Of course, we will change things for the better.
Imagine a world where we have gender equality and equity in and through the media. This is our mission at African Women in Media. I'm Dr. Yemisi Akimbobola, your host, and this is Her Media Diary, a podcast that captures the lived experiences of African women working in media industries. In this episode, I'm joined by Amie Joof, a journalist, activist, and women's rights advocate, and an absolute legend with over 35 years of experience. Madam Joof discusses her passion for journalism, her commitment for gender equality, and the importance of mentorship in empowering the next generation of women leaders. She also shares insights on the challenges and triumphs of advocating for women's rights in media. Throughout the series, we will be in conversation with African women who have been media legends by virtue of their long years of experience and invaluable contribution to the growth and actualization of gender equality in and through the media. By inviting these voices into conversation, we hope to provide solutions to break down barriers faced by African women in media industries. Such a pleasure to have you join me, Madam Joof. First of all, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your surname correctly. It's Madam Joof?
Joof, yes.
Joof. What does it mean? What does Joof mean?
Well, Joof is my surname, and it doesn't have a meaning really, but it's a very common name in Senegal and the Gambia.
Okay.
Yes, I'm from the Gambia.
Yes.
I'm Gambian by nationality.
No, absolutely. I know that you were chair of the National Women's Council of the Gambia in the 90s. So I definitely know that you're from the Gambia, and also you were the first female president of the Gambia Family Planning Association as well. Right, yeah. So you're one of our legends in terms of women, media, gender development. You are one of the inspirational figures in the area, and you've been doing this for a very long time, a very, very long time. What sparked your interest and your engagement in this field?
I think my interest started when I was in high school.
Okay.
I wanted to do three things. Each time I was asked by my teacher in high school, at the end, what would you like to do? I'll say I'll either do law, journalism, or interpretation because I love languages.
Okay.
So it started since high school. And when I was in high school, I was also given the task of following the news and then writing a summary of the news and pasting it on the wall so that, we will have some general knowledge, in the classroom discussing what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So from a very early age, I was interested in listening to radio because my father was a keen radio listener, especially the BBC. So that really inspired me. And then when I finished school, I went straight into broadcasting. I joined Radio Gambia at the age of 18.
Wow, that's amazing. So, as you mentioned earlier on, you grew up in Gambia. Which part of Gambia, and what was it like growing up? If you could take us all the way back to your earliest, fondest memories.
I was born in Bakau. At that time, it was a village,
Okay.
about 11 kilometers from the capital, Banjul. And I lived with my mom and my dad, blessed memory, and my siblings. And we had a huge family because In our tradition and culture, it's very common for an uncle to raise his nephews or his nieces and also other relatives.
Mm.
So we had a big family. My mom had 8 children, and I also had other siblings of the same father.
Yeah.
So it was quite a large family, and we all went to school. My father sent all of us to school, boys and girls, so we had equal opportunity for schooling. Unless you were not interested in learning, then that was another issue, but the opportunity was there. But I also spent some time of my childhood with my grandmother, my mother's mother,
Okay.
because my father was a public servant who worked at the health department and was posted outside of the area where we live. So my elder brother and I stayed with our grandmother, and that's how we grew up until we went to high school before our parents came back to Bakau for us to continue to
Mm.
go to high
Mm.
school.
Mm.
So growing up, with my brothers and my cousins, it was quite an experience. And the competition was subtle, being a
Mm.
girl and, you know, having to study, but at the same time doing household chores. It was not easy, especially on weekends. But during the week, it wasn't difficult because we're given the opportunity to have time to do our homework, to prepare for the next day, but we still had to help our mom in the house, to do the chores. But I grew up in a family where, at a very early age, there was distribution of labor.
Right.
I remember on Saturdays, my brothers and my cousins, the males, will do the laundry, and my sister and I will go to the kitchen. But they would do all the laundry in the house, and they will clean the house as well.
Mm.
So then on Sundays we had to iron our uniforms, and I had my eldest brother of blessed memory who was very good in those chores, and he would always come and help me to iron because I didn't like ironing, to iron my uniform for the next day. So at a very early age, there was division of labor in the house.
Yeah.
So it was not like we were brought up in an environment where, because we were girls, we're told that you have to do this and the boys should have all the time to go and play football or to go to school, and you wouldn't have the time to do your homework. We didn't encounter that at a very early age.
Mm, mm. I mean, from some of the things you said, there's a couple of things that you and I have in common. One, our love for our maternal grandmothers of blessed memory, as you said. Also, really, really loved my grandmother so much. She was such an inspiration. She didn't get the opportunity to go to school, but yet she's somebody that carried herself with so much grace that you wouldn't even know that she'd never went to school. And though she is gone now, she left us in 2016. I always have her in the back of my mind with anything I'm doing. How would she want me to behave now? How would she want me to be? What would she want from me in this situation? And the other thing we have in common is our dislike of ironing. No matter how much I try, I just cannot get those creases out. That's just not something that I do or enjoy doing. But I'm interested to hear more about the influence of those people, those key people in your life, like your grandma. Or what has been the influence of them in your life?
My grandmother influenced me a lot in terms of, being able to survive in whatever environment you find yourself,
Mm,
in terms of respecting other people, respecting their views, respecting elders, and speaking the truth.
mm,
My grandmother was a very outspoken woman, and she never hesitated to tell you her peace of mind if you are wrong. No matter who you are, she was very outspoken and
mm,
very generous as well. Graceful woman who didn't go to school but spoke many languages, who also was married to my grandfather who was a soldier. And before independence in 65, my grandfather was sent to Sierra Leone.
mm,
So my grandmother went with my grandfather to Sierra Leone and picked up the Creole language there. So she had this mixed culture, from Sierra Leone, the Gambia, but then lived in an environment where she spoke many languages because many languages were spoken there, local languages.
mm,
So I learned that from her. And then as I grew up under her guidance, I found myself speaking three Gambian languages, Wolof, Mandinka, and Fulam.
Wow.
So that helped me a lot. And she was also very much interested in our education because when my father and my mom went up country and left us with her, she knew she had a duty to make sure that we pursued our schooling. And she was very committed to that.
Mm.
And the other thing I liked about her was she exposed me to many things. Like after school, I will go with another cousin to the beach because Bakau is a fishing area. It's on the coast, the Atlantic
Okay.
Ocean, to buy fish. You know, I couldn't swim though. I was afraid of the sea, and still I am. But to go very early, at a very early age, to know how to go to the market, to know how to go and buy fish, to come back, to prepare dinner. So at a very early age, she taught me those things,
Mm.
but also because I had a responsibility to perform in the house like she was doing and to be by her side.
Mm.
So that helped me a lot. And she also, especially in the evenings, would tell us stories, you know, storytelling, which always had a moral lesson at the end of the story. And that really, you know, gave us an insight as to how society, you know, how complex society is and how also we need to navigate, you know, to find our ways in society.
Mm.
So I found that very useful. My mother also played a very important role because she also did not go to school, you know, but very intelligent, very responsible, you know, had this, how do I call it? Around her, she had this aura of attracting everybody, even my friends, you know, would come home, they would chat. You know, growing up, it was very, you know, sociable because your friend's mother are your mother.
Mm.
They serve as your mother as well in the society. Your mom also serves as their mother. Your dad as well, you know. So we grew up in that culture.
Mm.
Most of it you don't have these days, and that also helped us grow up respecting each other, but also knowing our roles and responsibilities, and at the same time that we needed to be focused to know where we were heading to. And that was very important because they kept reminding you that you're going to grow up.
Mm.
Even if you get married, you have gone to school, you must work. You have a responsibility to take care of your parents, and you also have a responsibility to take care of your siblings, your cousins, the extended family. So at a very early age, you have that high sense of responsibility. But you had these people who were not visible in the background, who were really giving you the strength to move forward. That helped me a lot.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier on about some of the things you began to do in high school that was kind of demonstrating where you then the path you then followed around media, women's rights, children's rights. So take us on that journey from those moments and how you developed to where you are now.
The moment when I was in high school, I loved reading, you know,
Mm.
and listening to radio because of my father's influence. So in the morning, I would summarize the news bulletin, the 7 o'clock news bulletin. I listen to it or the earlier bulletin,
Mm.
and then I have the summary which I paste on the wall, and then to say this is what I heard on the radio today, and then we will discuss it. So I was also amongst the team that would go and take part quiz or debates for the school. And also to take part, in fact, one time we went to take part in a radio program. It was a program between two high schools. We were at St. Joseph's High School, and our male colleagues from St. Augustine's High School were there. So the moderator will ask questions, and then we will give the answers. They will ask you, what is the meaning of UNESCO, for example? So at that age, in the late 60s, most of us wouldn't know what UNESCO meant.
Mm.
But if you listen to the news and if you also read some of the things that were published in the news, some of the newspapers, you'll be able to have that general knowledge. So at a very early age, I developed that. So I was able to share some of this information with some of my classmates, you know. I was also the head girl of my school, St. Joseph's High School, which was very rare at the time because for somebody who is not Catholic by religion
Mm.
to be head girl in a Catholic school in those years was not something that was common. So, but the school was very accommodating. We had all denominations and we went to school there. So when I got to the fifth form, preparing for my O levels, I was made the head girl of the school and I had four captains. But that's also where my sense of rebellion started.
Okay.
Because I remember as head girl, at one point, we were given homework to do. We came back and we couldn't do it. It was either geography or mathematics, I can't remember. And we couldn't do it. But the teacher thought that because we're doing very well in other subjects, we just refused to do it.
Mm.
And in those years, there was corporal punishment.
Yes.
So the principal of the school called us. We went to the office and she said she was going to give us the cane on our hands. So I told her, you can't beat me. I'm the head girl of the school. You cannot beat me in the office. And the other students, know that you are beating us. Then that will erode, our authority in the school.
Hmm.
And I think she was shocked that I said that. Yes, so I said I'm not going to take the cane. So I can resign, from the position of head guy, but I'm not going to be beaten
Mm.
because we couldn't do the homework. So my four captains, more rebellious than me, also followed suit. So that's how they removed us from those positions and they brought in other
Oh
people.
no.
So for us, it was okay so long as we refused to be caned,
Mm.
and that was going to erode our respect and authority in the school. So we refused. So the head girlship was short-lived, but I still refer to it and and let people know why it was short-lived. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier on that you were the first woman president of the Gambian Family Planning Association. You chaired the National Women's Council of the Gambia, but you've also gone on to lead a lot of other initiatives and organizations, including the one that you're executive director of now, FemDev, so the African Network of Women, Media, Gender and Development. So I imagine that all of those kind of initial upbringing, the stories you shared with us, has allowed you to emerge as a kind of leader, right? And also in terms of your experiences of being first in many environments. How would you describe those experiences of being first woman or first to lead, or that kind of rebellious nature also that you speak of?
What happened was that you find yourself in a situation as a journalist working on some issues. When I joined Radio
Mm.
Gambia, I've read the news because at that time we're told that as a broadcaster you have to be versatile. So you would read the news, you would present programs. When the senior staff went for further training outside of the Gambia, they will just ask you to do programs even without training. And because you've been following those who were there,
Mm.
so you were able to do some of those things. But as I moved on and then being exposed to many issues, covering issues that related to women's problems, women's issues, going out in the field, interviewing people, women who were on the farms, women at the health centers, because I later moved to a section that was responsible for rural broadcasting and adult education because I went to
Okay.
Ghana and studied adult education whilst working and then came back and continued
Mm.
working. And my experience in Ghana exposed me to many things radio listening groups, going to the rural areas, and then seeing what women were doing. Then it gets to a point as a journalist at that time
Mm.
where you see your role as just going out to the field, covering events, recording programs, compiling the programs, and broadcasting them
Mm.
on the radio. And that was it. Whether the programs
Mm.
had impact or not, you wouldn't know because there was nothing like audience research or evaluation of the programs or a systematic method of gathering feedback from the
Mm.
people, who were listening to the program. And what we did was we set up radio listening groups
Okay.
and did some campaigns in collaboration with the organizations that were working in the area of reproductive health, family planning. I was already a volunteer of the Gambia Family Planning Association as a member,
Mm.
but then going out with them to the field to record programs, attending their meetings, taking part in workshops, and then you find out that you are exposed to real issues that people are facing in the communities. childbirth issues, women dying from childbirth,
mm,
pregnancy related deaths, babies dying early, and those kinds of things. So as you do that work, you are able to come up with ideas that relate to what you're doing at the radio in terms of programming. And then you're also able to share with those people you work with, whether it's Gambia Family Planning Association or the National Women's Council, the Women's Bureau, whether it's other organizations, to say, I think as an organization, as an NGO, you should be able to do this kind of programming in collaboration
mm,
with the Ministry of Health, with Radio Gambia, which was then the only national radio. We didn't have TV at the time. And then
mm,
you sit down together and you form a team of script writers. So we've done all that. Script writers writing the synopsis for the drama programs, because some of us at radio were trained in radio drama production, writing and production.
mm,
So you apply those skills. So as you move with people and then you are part of the team that leaves its house to go to the rural areas, sometimes for 5 or 8 days, to record materials for programs and come back, and then getting feedback from the radio listening groups from the women to find out what their views are, and coming back to use that in programs, you build that confidence. But you are also able, I was
mm,
also able to inspire my colleagues, because I was not alone in it. I worked with other people, men and women, some of whom I mentored, and who were also committed in what we were doing. And they were part of the team that, I worked with. So I
mm,
very early on learned that it's always good to have a team. It's always good to share experiences. It's always good to involve other people, so that the day you are not around, those people will be able to follow you. Not only that, they can also pave their own way to get
yeah,
to higher heights and to be able to do what they
mm,
want to do in their career. And this gives me innermost satisfaction today when I see some of the people I've worked with, both men and women, at Radio Gambia, who today have paved their own career path and are doing fantastic jobs wherever they are. And that gives me the satisfaction that I was able to do that. Then it's the same thing
mm,
with the National Women's Council. I was nominated to chair the National Women's Council because of the work I was doing at Radio Gambia for women, going with the Women's Bureau staff on field visits, recording interviews, helping them develop, some communication plans and things like that at no cost. You build up that respect, and in the process, people can also assign you to certain tasks to head a National Women's Council, working with women
mm,
leaders in the communities, and you learn a lot from them. And when I was as chairperson of the Women's Council, we established the first women's community radio stations in the Gambia, two women radio community
wow,
stations. And we trained the women so that they could produce their programs. And at the same time, we had, with the Women's Bureau, it was a World Bank funded project, video halls, where women were also taught to use the video camera to record,
mm,
you know, things that they could discuss at the community level. So empowering women to have access to those skills and to those tools gave most of us innermost satisfaction that at least, we
mm,
could share the little knowledge and experience we had with other people. So it was the same thing with the other
mm,
organizations that I worked with, that some of my colleagues also joined and we worked with them. And today, most of them are doing the same work that we've been doing and other people are doing it. Like right now, I'm
mm,
part of a
mm,
team of mentors for the Female Journalists Association of the Gambia, Women Journalists Association of the Gambia. I was in the Gambia recently, sharing experience with the young female journalists, so you are mentoring them offline, online, and it's good because if you don't do it, it's like you are not sharing the little
mm,
knowledge that you have, the little skills that you have. You are not also encouraging other people to come close to you to learn. But at the same time, you also learn from them. So I think
mm,
those things are very important in the kind of work that we do. And it has motivated me to move further outside of the Gambia, come to Senegal, work with other people. We established this organization that is the network, Inter Africa Network for Women, Media, Gender, and Development. So
Mm, mm.
that was a vision that I had, very early on to share because you travel, you meet colleagues from different countries, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, other francophone countries, and they tell you what they are also doing in their countries. And that also motivates you to do more, in whatever field you are.
We know how important it is to have diverse voices and perspectives in our stories. And that is why we developed Source Her, a platform designed by African women in media with the support of Foyer Media Institute to connect journalists and female experts from across Africa. Whether you need a female data scientist, a health professional, engineer, aircraft expert, or someone who can bring fresh, innovative ideas to your story, Source Her has you covered. The platform boasts an extensive database of talented women, making it easier than ever to find the right fit for your story. And it's not just about filling positions, it's about promoting diversity and inclusion in and through the media. So go to sourcer.com to discover and interview female experts across Africa. Together, let's promote adequate inclusion and representation of women in Africa. I mean, it's very clear from kind of the experiences and the stories that you've shared that whatever position you found yourself in, you would make sure there was some kind of impact, right? And also kind of adapting to the environment and the need of the environment. It's really interesting to hear the things you're doing with the community, but then how you were inspiring other journalists as well. So I'm interested to know, in those years of working for Radio Gambia, what was it like for you as a woman journalist in that space?
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. Because one of the lessons I've learned, and which has landed me and some colleagues into trouble, but not very serious trouble, was that you want to address certain issues on radio. Let me take the issue of female genital mutilation.
Mm,
I was president of the Gambian Committee on Traditional Practices that dealt with female genital mutilation, early marriage, and all the traditional practices that are harmful to the health of women and girls. At the same time, I was a public servant working at the national radio. And our section was
mm,
responsible for health programs, women's programs, educational programs. So discussing this issue on radio was difficult. Covering the workshops, then recording interviews and speaking about the issue which was taboo and still is taboo in some of our communities was a problem. And it got to a point where we received a memo from the administration that nobody should talk about female genital mutilation in the programs. I wrote back. I responded to the memo and I told them that okay, we will not mention female genital mutilation, the fight against female genital mutilation in the program, but at the same time, we are not going to promote any messages that promote female genital mutilation because it's against
mm,
the national health development policy. And that's where I also learned that as a journalist, if you want to do activism, you should be okay with the policies that exist in your country. You should be okay with the laws that are in the constitution, the provisions in the constitution.
mm.
You should be okay with all the support that these UN agencies give and all the agreements that your government have signed and the monies that
Yeah.
they receive from those organizations. So that at any point in time, if they want to tell you that you should not talk about this on national radio, you tell them that the Gambia government has signed a memorandum of agreement with this agency and they've received this money to promote women's health and bodily integrity. You need to
Mm,
know that for you to be able to have an argument so that you just have to continue to do what you are doing. Nobody can stop you. That was an issue.
mm,
The other issue is that was that when you are outspoken as a woman, when you go to management meetings and you are outspoken, not only you are it's just for you, but also for colleagues, for the staff you're working with, other colleagues who are working. It was common before management meeting for people to come to us, some of us, they will come and say, we don't have anybody to defend us when you go to management meeting. These are our problems. Then I will take note and say, okay, but are you doing your work correctly? Are you following your schedule? Are you doing this? I ask questions that say because I don't want to be embarrassed when I go to that management meeting. I
mm.
need my facts
Absolutely.
right.
Yes.
So when you go to the management meeting and you raise some of those issues that most people don't want to address, you are a rebel. They will not tell you that you are a rebel. But sometimes I found myself once Management had a meeting and they excluded me. I was in the studio recording. Somebody came and said, "You're not
Mm.
at the meeting." I said, "What meeting?" They said, "There's a management meeting." I said, "Really? I'm not, I wasn't aware." I stopped the recording and I went. I knocked, they opened, I went and I sat down. I said, "Nobody told me there was a management meeting, but I'm here." The people will find ways and means. We had, the way we were saying it, to put you in the deep freezer, but you have to
Mm.
refuse for anybody to take you and put you in a freezer. But for
Mm.
you to be able to do that, one, punctuality. Two,
Mm.
do your work as you should.
Yeah.
Three, speak up when you are at meetings. Fourthly, don't belong to any group that is there to defend the status quo of the organization to the detriment of people who are working there. And that earns you your respect. I remember at one point in my career, I was even supposed to act as manager of the national radio. But at
Mm.
that time, we had started having difficulties with the regime that was under President Yahya Jammeh.
Okay.
Then, for me to be given that position to act became a problem. And
Mm.
they started looking for other people who would do it. And most of the people they went to worked with me and told them, "No, it's Madam Amie Joof who should be the acting manager. She mentored us, we've worked with her, and we know that she's capable to do the job." I didn't know that all those maneuvers were going on until one day they had to hand over to me as acting manager of the national radio. But
Mm.
it's later on that I got the full story, and the argument was that, some of these women, they will not say strong women, they will say, some of these women,
Mm.
when you put them there, they will change everything. Of course, we will change things
Yeah.
for the better. We will change things like you cannot have an imam using State House Mosque in his sermon to insult people who are doing
Mm.
campaign against female genital mutilation, or to insult people who are leading organizations that are campaigning against traditional practices. When that imam is recorded and is brought to the station, as a manager, you tell the person who has recorded it to go and edit the insult before broadcasting the material.
Mm.
When you also tell them that you cannot just take a schedule and just be changing a schedule like that when you have a broadcast schedule. You have to respect the schedule because you have to respect the audience. You cannot change it because
Mm.
there's going to be a statement by a minister. So you just remove a program that's on that schedule permanently because somebody's statement has to come. That has to be negotiated. And those people should be informed that this program is not coming at the scheduled time, it's coming later tonight so that they can arrange to
Mm.
listen to the program if they are interested. But I must also say that through collaboration, I was able to get the support of also men within the institution, men who I've worked with, men that I still continue to work with, men who had the opportunity to also attend some of the trainings we attended, whether it's gender training, whether it's doing programming on women issues and things like that. You share those opportunities with them, and then when they are exposed to those opportunities and to those perspectives, then you will see that that will reflect in the work that they do. But
Mm.
being a woman in that kind of job was not easy because you also had the family responsibility of raising your kids. I was lucky to have my mom, and my mother was the one who helped me to raise my children because I had to go to work. I
Mm.
had to travel outside of the Gambia. I had to go to meetings and also to the interior of the country.
And obviously, you're the executive director of the Inter Africa Network for Women, Media, Gender, and Development. Tell us more about that and how, the kind of work that you do.
The organization has its headquarters in Senegal, here in Dakar, and we work
Mm.
in West and Central Africa, and mainly with women journalists, men as well, and then we also work with organizations that share the same objectives as FAMEDEV, giving a voice to women, looking at issues,
Mm.
monitoring the media to see the issues of representation and sources of information, who speaks in the news, who is interviewed, who is given a voice. Those are some of the issues,
Mm.
the things that we address. Looking at issues of training, capacity building for media, looking at women in leadership in the media, but at the same time conducting research, looking at issues that are covered, but using the data to do advocacy and also to train people in the media We work with civil society organizations as well. We work with the local government authorities. We work in the communes. Here in Senegal, for example, we have the communes in the municipalities where we have the women and the young people, on issues of gender-based violence, traditional practices that take place, in the remotest parts of
Mm.
the country. So we do not only work in Senegal, but we work in other countries with partner organizations. If I take the case of Sierra Leone, for example, and before the elections, we did media monitoring on women's political representation with another
Mm.
organization that is based there. And we did the monitoring and then online did the data analysis. And then I was in Nigeria, in Enugu, doing election observation, and that's where I presented the report from.
Mm.
So
Mm.
we look at issues of governance as well, because it's not just about informing, educating, and entertaining as far as the media is concerned. We are in all the issues that relate to good governance in our country, that relate to issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So in the area of inclusion, we work with people with disability. You look at some of the issues that concern them. They endure a lot of gender-based violence and discrimination wherever they are. So in the area of governance, election observation, you look at what the media
Mm.
is doing. If there are opportunities to train media practitioners, you train them. When you also work with the women organization in terms of women political participation and representation in their political parties, as well as in positions that are put out there for election, you also do that kind of work
Mm.
with them. We work
Mm.
on the Global Media Monitoring Project with World Association for Christian Communication,
Yeah.
and we've been the organization that has been coordinating West and Central Africa. And apart from that, we've also been asked to even train some organizations, like in Mali, on media monitoring. So we do all that. Apart from the research, the advocacy, the publications that we do, audiovisual materials, the networks that we belong to also, we also support them in terms of developing communication strategies, in terms of doing some productions, and also in terms of training on issues relating to gender and women, youth, and other issues that relate to women's development.
And I mean, you were director before you became executive director since its beginning, right? So to round us up today, in this episode, as you look forward, so you've had decades and extensive experience on women, gender, media development, press freedom, all of those things, child's rights. As you look forward next 10 years, next 5 years, and looking backwards also on all the things you've learned, all the achievements you've had, all the ways in which you see the environment changing for the better, changing for the worse, what are the things that you are hoping that we do not repeat? What are the mistakes, the issues around gender equality in media that you're hoping as we're looking forward that we're learning from the past?
Looking forward, I believe that one of the things we have neglected is working with young people who are in the school.
Mm.
From preschool, because when they go to preschool, the teachers are there. We need to engage those teachers at preschool level who work
Mm.
with children who go to preschool, and then see how from a very early age these issues are addressed, not like the way they are addressed with adults, but in terms of colors that they want children to wear, blue for boys, pink for girls, and in terms of toys that are provided in the preschool environment, those kinds of issues. And that we can only do if we engage some of the schools and then be
Mm.
able to exchange with them and then see how you equip the teachers, and those who take care of the children. And going
Mm.
further, primary school level. When you look at the curriculum in our schools, in our countries,
Mm.
the issues relating to gender and some of the issues we've all been working on are not dealt with there.
Mm.
So probably at the level of the primary school, if those issues are not addressed in the curriculum, we need to work closely with the Parent Teachers Association. We need to work closely with the school boards that exist, the teachers, and have some kind of discussion and dialogue and exchange to see how we are able to raise these issues, even if formally, They are not in the school curriculum, but as extracurricular activities. And it goes up to the level of high school as well. Even though at the level of high school, most of the organizations that work on these issues have been working with some of the high schools and engaging them in some of the work that we do. And other organizations are also doing and inviting them to take part in programs, to write essays on some of these thematic areas. But I think we need to do more on that. We also need to do more on policy because no matter how much information you give out, how much training you conduct, how much work you do, if policy issues are not addressed, if your advocacy is not based on research, on facts that you can use to convince policy issues and make sure that out of everything that you do, there is a policy advisory that you prepare that should be submitted to the relevant ministry or institution that is responsible for that issue. I think we need to do more of that. I also feel that there still need for more networking, for more networking. We have a lot of organizations in West Africa, in Central Africa, in Africa as a whole, working on all the issues that all of us are working on. We need to network. We need to document. Documentation is a big gap. We need to document the experiences that people have had. Like what you are doing, you're documenting. I've listened to the podcast, some of the podcasts, and I must congratulate you for the excellent work that you are doing.
Thank you.
In putting together this information that other people can listen to. The information alone that you're putting on the podcast can help younger people to listen and learn from. And at the same time, not make the mistakes that some of us have made in the past. So I think we need to document. Most of people of our generation have not documented. That was when we started the type of typewriter, or you just write. People have written papers that they presented at meetings, scribbled, handwritten, not typed. They can't even find them. So I think it's very important for us to document, our trajectory, what we have done.
Yeah.
And I think what you're doing, it's an opportunity that, should be replicated or should be expanded to include more women, and probably even not only in English, but also in French, to see whether there's a possibility to get those interviews with people who have done also the same work that you're doing, the same work that I've been doing, that other people are doing, but whose first language is not English. So that's also a lesson I've learned in the work that I do, because we work in all the three languages, mostly English and French, plus the local languages, but we also try to work with the Portuguese speaking countries, even though we don't speak Portuguese, but some of them understand English and French.
Thank you so much, Madam Joof. It's been such a pleasure. I'm really, really honored to have done this interview with you, to capture your years of experience and to learn from you. You've actually inspired me and got my mind, turning in terms of the future of my organization, African Women in Media. So it's such a pleasure. I really look forward to meeting with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, thank you very much for this opportunity. I must say it's the first extended interview I've had over the years, and I can assure you that I'm ever ready to share my skills, my knowledge, which is what I'm doing now, mentoring, as I'm in the process of transitioning from the organization, and making sure that a new team takes over. You'll be in the background, giving advice whenever you are needed. But at the same time, you don't stay at home and not share the little experience that you have with other people. Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you. And thank you so much, Auntie.
Thank you so much, ma'am. One of the key themes of my conversation with Madam Joof is the importance of mentorship, something that she emphasizes, especially the need for experienced women to guide and support younger generations, ensuring that they have the tools and knowledge that's necessary to succeed. Her own experiences as a mentor has been incredibly fulfilling, and you can hear how much of a pride she takes in seeing her mentees thrive in their careers. As we look to the future, Madam Joof stressed the need for early intervention in addressing gender issues. She calls for greater engagement with educators at the preschool level to instill values of equality and respect from that tender age. By addressing these issues early on, we can create a more equitable society for future generations. As always, drop me an email at yemc@africanwomeninmedia with your thoughts and if you'd like to join me on an episode of this podcast. And in the show notes, there's a list of organizations and resources to support you if you've experienced any of the topics we've discussed today. And as always, subscribe and follow Her Media Diary on your favorite podcasting platforms. Please do click that follow or subscribe button. Remember, you can also tune in to our partner radio stations that broadcast episodes of the podcast across a number of African countries. That's West African Democracy Radio and Rise Radio in Sierra Leone. And don't forget to join the conversation using the hashtag Her Media Diary.
Her Media Diary is a product of African Women in Media, an NGO advocating for gender equality in the media industry. And this episode was hosted by Dr. Yemisi Akimbobola, produced and edited by Blessing Udeobase as part of a 4-episode series on media legends. All music featured in this podcast is by Nana Kwabena. Thanks for listening and join us again next time.